from Korea and Vietnam. God bless our veterans. God bless America, land of the free because of the brave.
We're proud of the person who participated in Korean War. We respect him.
We had a little war of our own called the Korean Police Action. But I want to tell you that this has been a wonderful event for a new friend that I met as my roommate, and we both turned 90 within a month of ourselves this year. And I can't tell you how much I have appreciated this honor flight. Today is probably one of the best days that I've had in my entire life. So I just want to say thank you all for this wonderful meeting. Thank you.
Woke up that morning and we heard the news over the loudspeaker. The war had started in Korea. At that time, they changed my title from telephone lineman to wireman. I was the only wireman in the area. One night, there was a break on the line. Well, the line had been taken off completely for about a mile or so. We got up to the base of the mountain. We could see that there was lights up where these guys were supposed to be. So we just drove up to where we got up to where they were. We saw one of them by the door, and he was laying on the ground. And then we looked inside their room where they were, and all of them had been killed. And some of them were, whoever did it, they not only killed him, but they did some horrible things to him. One day they told us that our planes were going to be flying out of North Korea, so we were leaving for North Korea. Flew out, took us a long time. We landed back in Japan instead of North Korea. And as a C-47 started coming in, we started unloading all the wounded Marines that were being brought back. Just about all the guys that had been wounded, they got them on ambulances. But I remember there's one guy that stayed on the plane and he didn't move. There was one of the sergeants that said, "Hey, get up here, get up off your butt and start moving over here." And the guy didn't even answer him. And so the sergeant says, "Go up and help that guy get up and get him off the plane." And I went up and the guy couldn't get up. He had both his legs were in a ice block. So they got some more guys to come up and help him get up, pick him up and take him off. And I always thank God that I didn't have to be like those other guys. I enjoyed the trip very much. Very glad to be around some of those guys because they were all very friendly and everything. And I know that a lot of them had been through a lot more than I had. Very proud also that those Koreans there that were there.
Boy sat talking with his dad. He said the teacher pulled out a book, taught us all about the flag, about the red, white, and blue, and how each color was defined, and why we stand hand over heart, pledge allegiance every time. His dad pulled out a box with a folded flag. Said, "Trust me, son, it means way more than that. It's more than a flag, stars and stripes. Yeah, it waves for the ones who died and gave their lives so you and I could live our own. It stands for truth, it stands for grace. These colors don't run out to this day. Carry sacrifice and scars, and every stripe and star it has. You might know the definition, but the truth is, it's more than a flag.
I was a radioman, bases, one into Laos, one into Cambodia, supporting River Patrol Boat Division 594, they would go out at night and put in people on land. And one morning we woke up and everybody was just around the corner and up the river, and they got to looking and went up there and looked. Two boys about 15, 16 years old. They had a little floating inner tube like this and a big bundle of C4, and they were headed downriver, and I slept in a floating barracks. But they got them before that. And then I went to Guam. I went and helped refurbish an old naval hospital. The guys were coming home from Vietnam, badly injured. And then I went back to Vietnam. A friend of mine came in one night and he said, "Hey, I'll see you. I'm going home." And I said, "You can't go home. We're not ready to go." He said, "Oh, yeah, we are." We were turning the bases over to the South Vietnamese Navy. And I was training a young 28-year-old South Vietnamese sailor who had a young wife and 5 kids already, I think. Became a good friend and fell in love with that family. I believe in God, and I believe He took care of me.
I had 2 deployments. Well, I was an aviation fire control technician. First cruise, I worked in the intermediate maintenance shop. The fire control technicians that worked on the flight deck, they pull the black boxes out of the airplane and send them up to the shop to be repaired. My second cruise,
I worked the flight deck. Interviewed the pilots after they come back and ask them if they had any problems and what their problems were. Then I'd troubleshoot their problems, and if it required a change of a black box or something, I'd pull the black box out, put another black box in. Pilots going through their pre-flight check, and there's test tones that they hear in their headset. Well, the pilot said he wasn't hearing any tones. So I reached down on the panel and I turned the volume control all the way up. And I thought he was going to tear his helmet off his head. But he never forgot that volume control again.
I joined the military because my father was, not a very nice man, so I had to get out of the house. My brother would call me from Germany and he, tell me how wonderful it was. Well, I sued the Army because as young as I was, I realized it was blatant discrimination. I was 17 years old and my brother was 17 when he joined. A girl could not go in at 17, but a boy could. And here's another one. The initial qualifications test that everybody takes, it determines your general knowledge. A boy only had to get a 49, a girl had to get a 79. I was beefing about it, and all of a sudden a lawyer, is saying, oh, well, we could do something about that, not knowing that being a lawyer that I was actually going to sue. At the same time, I went to a recruiting station, and a very cocky drill sergeant type, and he came out in the hallway, he says, come over here, Grace Jones, come over here. And I said, okay. And next thing I knew, I was in the Marine Corps. When the suit finally came to pass, my drill instructor called me into the office, had attention and the whole thing. Yes, sir, you won your lawsuit, dismissed. And I said, well, yeah, okay. There were 200 suits that combined with mine. And yeah, so we were in the foreground of changing all that, yeah. And when you took your classes, which they were very abundant, they stressed the fact that you were a woman first and a Marine second. So we had a lot of etiquette and stuff classes, I don't know if you know about that. Yeah, and hair and makeup and stuff like that. It's like I'm 17 and, While I was in, they pulled me out of the motor pool. I was a body mechanic and a welder, and I did pictures for recruiting pamphlets, but I had so much fun. I mean, I got to go rappelling, I got to go on maneuvers with the guys, and essentially, I was like a mascot. If, Gracie does it first, and if you don't do it, you're a weenie, because Gracie did it, right? I did request after request to go to Okinawa. They knocked me down every single time. I never got to go overseas or anything like that, so I was very envious of all the guys that did, although, they were on the front line and I just wanted to wrap bandages or, do anything, and I wanted to go, and they wouldn't let me, so.
And in '68, that's when we got the Tenofeds. I happened to be on guard duty when it all began to happen, that we got fires from the front, and then they came out from behind us, and we were surrounded with the Viet Cong. The M16 had gotten so hot that you could exchange the barrel. It didn't have no gloves or anything, so just burned my hand. Took it off and put the other one in and ready to go. There was this one gentleman that was assigned with me to guard. He was afraid. Well, we all were afraid. He got up and said, I'm tired of it. I can't do this anymore, so he says, you got to fight back. But no, he threw his weapon down and says, I'm afraid. That situation that everybody was panicking, and he lost a lot of friends there. During my second tour, I would volunteer to go on recons. We ended up in Cambodia. We found a cache of weapons because we had a tunnel rat that would go with us. Getting ready to get ETS from Vietnam. I wanted to volunteer again. I said, no, we're getting ready to pull out, and you're not allowed to stay.
I've been living on borrowed time. I did my 13 months. I was with the artillery unit, and the day before my birthday, the corporal was in charge of me. He said, I know your birthday's coming up, but you got your prick 25. Go turn them in. I got in there. The guy in charge was Sergeant Green. So you won't leave till tomorrow, yeah. He said, good. They asked me to give one of my people to send the security tonight. You're it. You just volunteered. I said, but it's my birthday. He said, well, you go on the perimeter. And I set a premonition. I said, I'm not gonna make it. So when I got to the perimeter, I told the sergeant, those sandbags are a little bit bad. He said, can I put them in a new one in there? Sure. So I filled them up. The guy said, I'm gonna help you with this. We started getting a mortar rounds. We were sitting on top of it. The guy just threw me off and he went to where I was at. Covered my head with hard. I said, oh, they're gonna walk them rounds into me. I just hear the rounds exploding out. It might have been maybe 5-10 minutes. To me, it was eternity. And I said, oh, once he gets on, beat the heck out of this guy next to me. Well, silence came on. And I go, hey, why'd you throw me out? The guy didn't answer. And the thing is, he took his flak jacket off and put it on top of himself. So he was more scared than I was, I guess. And I went to move. He didn't move. So on the ground, killed him. And that's why I said I'm on borrowed time. Because that's where I wanted to be. He threw me out of the way to my place. And that's what's always haunted me. When I wake up, I thank God I'm alive.
My graduation class had about 60 people. We had a draft board that picked and chose who went to Vietnam. They picked the poorest guys in the world, and that was me. I grew up on a cotton farm, picking cotton tobacco. I had a friend of mine who died in 1967 that was at the wall today, and I had a hard time with that. And every time I see that name, I just tear up.
I was a paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne, but my primary aim was demolitions, and I like to blow things up, you know. We were like a quick reaction force. They found caches of ammunition that needed to get blown up. We inserted, and let's say a chopper went down, we used to go and rig it up for another chopper to come in and sling it out. Sergeant Capps, he was the other squad leader. They received gunfire for the Huey chopper that got shot down. Our pilot received the mayday. The door gunner apparently was hurt real bad. Carlos went ahead and disconnected the battery, but before it caught fire, he pulled the M60 from the door gunner's post, and he pulled security as well. What happened is when it went down, Kenneth Capps was ejected from the chopper, and one of the rotor blades broke his back. About 5 years ago, I called him and he answered the phone, and he says, is this Kenneth Capps with the 1st Cav? He says, yeah. And I says, hey, listen, this is Sergeant Dwayne. I was in Vietnam with you. Oh yeah, that crazy guy, that crazy Mexican. He says, yep, that's him. How are you? He says, well, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm okay. He says, well, I got some pictures and everything, but I don't want to bring back memories. And I also says, no. And he called me back about half an hour later, and he says, oh man, he says, wow, these are great, man. Thank you. He thanked me a lot.
I was a crew chief on a 141, and I had personally taken the blame for taking a lot of you guys over there, bringing some of you back. And I remember going through the caskets also, checking out the names, trying to remember the names of the guys that were boarding when we were taking them over there, and then coming them back, and some of the aerovacs that came in through. And all this time, it was my fault, you know. I got to a point where I had to spend 2 months at Big Springs, because I was, you know, the guilt had gotten to me. And getting through that, I spent the rest of my life trying to prevent that from happening by trying to do what I could for the veterans. But today, and I wanted to speak right now, well, a lot of you are here, you know, what I really need is the forgiveness of every single one of you that were on these aircrafts that flew there, and that some of you came back, a lot of you didn't. So, with that, thank you.
Say to your granddad fought in Vietnam back in '65. 352nd dropping bombs to lessen the threats he had to fight. Got sent home in '71 with one less leg and a purple heart. He used to say, I gave some, but some gave all, and that's what we're fighting for. They gave your grandma this box on the day he passed. Fired 21 shots and fought it up that flank.
I was in Vietnam when I was 18 years old. When the airplane opened the door, you just couldn't breathe. That stench and it'll stay with, even when you come back, you still smell like Vietnam. My job in Vietnam was supply for an infantry battalion. I was supposed to stay in division in Da Nang. People go to Da Nang for R&R. You got it made, Humberto. I went to division. They said, no, you're not going to stay here. You're going to go to an infantry battalion that right now is right outside Da Nang, but they're moving. And we moved just about every month going north. We'd go out and secure a large area and make a big compound, and then the Seabees would come and make an airstrip. You learn to live out of a small bag you pack in your back and eat out of sea rations, which are good. Beaners and wieners are real good. The peanut butter cookies were real good. The Marine Corps didn't have what it would take for us to be there in monsoons. We didn't have poncho liners, a bunch of us didn't have ponchos, and it rains for months on end, day and night. Everything's wet. You just never dry.
I was with 81 millimeter mortars in Vietnam. We got pulled back to a fire base called Cates, the safest fire base in all of Vietnam. Whenever they had dignitaries or anything that wanted to come out and see what it was like, they would bring them to Fire Support Base Cates. So I told the guys, hey, how about we get some beer? So everybody threw in what MPC they had. I got on a helicopter, flew back to Vandergrift Combat Base, went to the beer sales. Here's what I got, how much beer can I buy with that? It ended up being 15 cases. So now I have 15 cases of Black Label beer. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get it back out. And I drive by, and sitting outside the mail room is these big 6-foot nylon red mail bags. I got 2 of them. I put the beer in the 2 of them, went back up to the LZ. I said, got mail for Fire Support Base Case. Well, mail was a priority. So they got me on the first helicopter out. So I got there. One thing I forgot to mention, this was in July 1969. I had the guys, we came over, we got back to the gun pit. That night was the night Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. We stayed up all night drinking beer and listening to the Armed Forces radio as Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. It was the middle of the night in Vietnam, full moon. We were sitting there in an 81 gun pit in the middle of Vietnam, and we landed a man on the moon. But we drank a lot of beer.
And then all of a sudden I had orders to headquarters of Marine Corps for embassy duty. And I ended up in diplomatic security, so they sent me to the American Embassy. When Tet of '68 happened, I was one of the ones that got pulled from there, and we went to Saigon with Ambassador Bunker's wife. And then from there, we would go in and out of country. We would get assigned to a civilian. We would go into the villages, and then he would conduct interviews and talk to the villagers and so forth. A couple of times we came under fire. We were basically his security detail. I finished that tour. They sent me back to Brooklyn Navy Yard, which doesn't exist anymore. There they made me a cross-country chaser. That's a glorified jailer. I did that for 30 some odd days. And then I got my discharge. I went home and I couldn't find myself, so I said, well, let's go back in. 75, I went in for the Mayaguez incident, Eagle Pool, frequent wind for the evacuation of the embassy, and that's when we came under super heavy fire. After that, we got the Vietnamese refugees out. We took them, the first load to Laos, the second load to Guam, and then they took us to the Philippines and sent us back to Japan.
You know, I'm like a young man back here. I was from a little old town, Surrey, Virginia, and got my draft notice to go to Vietnam. Cried like a baby, because I did not want to go. I got over there and I thought I knew everything, until that first round hit my PC. Woke me up and made me realize that I was not the individual who I thought I were. You know, I looked on the wall today. I found 3 comrades in arms that was in my recon platoon. I had a young lieutenant named Lieutenant Godwin. He was one of them hard lieutenants. His father was a brigadier general. Thanksgiving Day, 1968, we were having dinner in the dining hall. And he come in there and he walked up to each platoon member and wished us a happy Thanksgiving. Sad part about that morning, when we rolled out that compound, there was a NBA flag down on the ground with a note, and that note said, "Do not leave the gate today." But we had to open this road. We got about 2 miles down the road with the engineers and we got hit. We got hit hard. Out of a 39-man platoon, we lost 11 men that morning. And you know, the most touching part about it, the young lieutenant and his RTO, as they were putting the last man on the dust off, they backed up and hit a mine. That broke my heart. We had a young E4, started hollering booby trap, booby trap. You know how soldiers are, they jump off the vehicle, want to go see where the booby trap is. So every man on my vehicle, I drove for the platoon sergeant, got off that vehicle and went over there, look at that booby trap. Got over there, and who you think tripped the booby trap? Platoon sergeant. I ended up that day with nobody on my vehicle but myself. That's really hurt me, and that was a lonely part of my life when I had nobody as my vehicle went back to the perimeter. I fired the 50 cal. It wouldn't fire but 1 round at a time. I eject 1 round fire. I eject again, 1 round fire. So they led me back to the perimeter, 1 vehicle in front of me and 1 vehicle behind me. I got back to the perimeter. If you know a 50 cal, I changed every moving part that I could change in that 50 cal. To test fire my 50 cal, I linked two 100 round belts together and fired that 50. And they had to tell me cease fire. I never let my weapon or any other weapon on my vehicle got to the point where it would not fire.
I joined the Navy when I turned 18 in '72. And by the time I got out of boot camp and onto the Coral Sea, that's where they sent me. Activities in Vietnam were kind of, seemed like they were winding down some. So I didn't see all this action that you guys are sitting here talking about. But I was stuck out there on a ship doing the job they gave me to do. The Navy taught me how to make liquid oxygen and liquid nitrogen. Without those 2 components, those aircraft couldn't fly. So it was kind of a critical job. We were kind of involved when they started evacuating soldiers such as yourselves. And I remember we went into Saigon and we brought on literally thousands of soldiers. And we had our hangar deck packed with Marines, Army, anything that needed to go. You guys were awesome. I saw the conditions that they were coming on, and it's like what you described. You guys went through hell. I mean, compared to what you did, I was in heaven there.
I want to also thank the honor flight, our guardians. They spoiled me. I don't know what to do now. But I want to thank you guys. You really helped me. When I got the call for the honor flight, I thought, no, I won't go. I didn't think I was worthy of going. They call that imposter syndrome. It's just in my mind. But I went to Thomas Edison High School. We lost 64 veterans in Vietnam, the most of any school in the nation. The patch I'm wearing, I'm part of the Edison 64. There's a film out called the Edison 64. There's a book out by Richard Sands called the Edison 64. And if you listen to one of the movie trailers, you'll hear my voice. So I really felt like I let these guys down because I really wanted to be a Marine. I did not plan on going in the Air Force. I enlisted in 1968 right out of high school. Graduated. I went to the wall today. Alfred Purvis, he sat next to me for 5 years. He died 9 April 1969. I was at Dover, Delaware. We were the mortuary. So every week when C-141s came in, there would be caskets on from Vietnam. And we used to go on and inventory those airplanes. And we'd look at the names every week. Now, I felt guilty because I didn't go. Only combat unit we had, I was a combat ground controller. We deployed to Desert Storm. First leg out, we took off. I got to one station that said, Reeves! I said, that's me. And they gave me new orders, a report to Maxwell Air Force Base for a year. We deployed again, Reeves, you have to stay, because we're only going to take a mini. So this trip was very good for me, because when I rubbed my friend off, Alfred Purvis, I know he was saying, hey, Al, you did what you had to do. You didn't let us down.
I wanted to be a Marine since I was a little girl. I saw a picture of my cousin and she was in dress blues. And I said, I want that. My parents were against it. They told me that the men were not going to respect me. And that's why I waited until I was 21 so that they wouldn't have to sign for me. I worked, they called it casualty company. We discharged the ones that were coming back from Vietnam and they had been wounded. We typed their 214s and some of them were in wheelchairs. I remember one, he was missing one of his legs and it was wrapped up in gauze, but the gauze was full of blood. And I'm like, oh my God. And they were all, you know, they were all bad. When the honor flight, I think it was you that said, if you were in the service and it was during Vietnam, if they didn't send you to war, that was not your fault. And so you shouldn't feel like I don't deserve to be called a Vietnam veteran. I thought about what I had seen and what I was doing, and I thought, okay, I wasn't in Vietnam, but I was here helping these, and some of them, they would talk, you know, and it was just like, oh, I'm so glad you're going home, and I hope you're all right. Yeah, and they would brighten up, and so I thought about that. I said, I did help. I did do something that made me feel real good, because I belong to the Vietnam Veterans of America, and some of the members had told me, well, you're not a Vietnam veteran. You shouldn't be in this group. And I said, well, I qualify and I'm here, and I am a Vietnam veteran, but I was always in doubt. But when you said that, and I thought, yes, I did my part. I'm very proud of my service. I learned a lot, and I gave a lot.
I happened to be there in Germany. Remember the Cold War? We were out there 3 days and 3 nights, and it was at least 30 feet without sleeping, and it was 40 below in Grafen Rear during the day. One of the sergeants, instead of saying, hey, we'll get out of here, he said, we had it better in Korea than here. These people are crazy. But I was telling John that when you go to a service, there's a good and a bad. You think positive, and we gotta think positive. Hey, I'm gonna get out of here. Let's not take anything for granted. You're special. You're something special. Whenever you look in the mirror, tell yourself, don't say, hey, no wonder this or that. You're something special because God made you special.
I went over and I started as a crew chief, door gunner in a Huey. Special Forces recon and kill squads, and we'd fly them FOB forward over the border into Laos, Cambodia, North Vietnam, and when we'd drop them off, and we'd keep a crew flying 24/7. So if they got in contact, we could swoop in and pick them up. Got shot down quite a few times, but it was quite an ordeal, because we were doing a McGuire rig insertion where they're sitting on a strap and they hook it into their load gear, and we pull them in and out that way, so we don't have to try to go below the jungle, but the skyline. And we were doing that, and we took an RPG in the tail boom. I had to think real fast and just go down and release them, because they were about 10 feet off the ground. Release them back into the jungle, and Tom slid it into the trees. He couldn't have done a better landing. He barely felt it jolt. And we crawled down the tree and went to the 12 o'clock of the aircraft, and they met us there. And about 3 hours later, here come the, it's called a Mike Force. They put the door gunners and crew chiefs and the pilots through a modified course so we'd know how to survive in the jungle if they weren't there, one, and to help augment them so we could get out. We called them snoop and poops, where they'd go in and snoop and just gather information, or they'd go on kill missions where they had a specific person that they were supposed to eliminate. That one was a big one, because they'd have to sneak right into NVA headquarters. And I can think of 3 generals that they took out from the bushes. They snuck in within 300 yards. Their rifles were silenced. So they'd take the shot and just lay down. And they'd wait for the commotion to go down. They'd back out, get up, pop smoke, go in and get them. We had 3 different missions. We'd have a team, and my sister ship would have a team. And then the other 2 birds would make a fake insertion. And they had cardboard silhouettes that they'd sit up on the floor. They'd go into their LZ and they'd drop the cardboard and then come back out just like we were. And so it looked like we had 4 birds of GIs going in. We only had 2. We had to go in the lower LZ fire base that we were evacuating. It took us 3 days to get all these poor guys off this fire base. It's called Fire Base Ripcord. It was the last major conflict in South Vietnam. It was in July of 1970. In fact, it was on my birthday. There was a Chinook tandem helicopter crashed in the middle of it, and I mean, it was just quite a scene. And we were told to recover the body bags that were on the lower LZ. When we got to them, the North Vietnamese had already got to these guys and cut them up in little pieces and just piled them in the bag. That mission is one that I really had to go to counseling over. That was a pretty tough mission. We got shot down 6 times in 3 days, because we would just make a sortie, go and fly in and fly back out, go and fly in, fly back out. And you know, we never really thought about you're gonna go get killed. But it was a very real thing.
I guess my story is gonna be why I'm here tonight. It's a 2-part story. The first one, I can get through. The second one, I may need some help. I was on the way to Vietnam, flew into Atlanta, and being a redneck from Texas, you know, here's this gentleman at the water fountain in an immaculate suit, black guy. He turns around. I said, "You look just like that guy that's causing all the trouble here in the South." He looked at me with a booming voice, says, "Let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Martin Luther King." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes, I'm Dr. Martin Luther King." And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to Vietnam." He said, "Well, let's spend some time talking." He took me over, and every civil rights leader there, Loretta, introduced me. Such a fine gentleman. Before he left, he said, "Ward, I want to pray for you. You're coming back from Vietnam." I said, "I hope so." That's the first part. And then we fast forward to February 3rd, 9 o'clock at night, out of the name. My best friend, Lieutenant Hollingsworth, now had some drinks, and he said, "Ward, you don't take this war serious enough." And I was one of these guys that, you know, if they had a bullet and my name's on it, it's going to happen. There's nothing I can do about it, and I'm not going to worry about it. I stood on the hill and told Ho Chi Minh to shoot me if he wanted to. He didn't, but I stood up there and hollered at him anyway. And so Mike and I had an argument, and he said, "Well, we got to go out and check out this site in the morning. I'll meet you at 9. I said, "No, you won't, because I'm going to go to church." I'd never been to church the whole time, but we had the right to go to church. Someone walks in, and they say that Mike and Paul Allman were both killed in a landmine. I was supposed to be there. And because of the prayers, I'm here tonight. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I can't say anymore.
I was a Navy corpsman attached to the 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, 3rd Marine Division. Marines that I will never forget. Marines that I'm sure I owe my life to. Marines who gave their lives in the Shaw Valley where I was. It's been difficult for me as well coming over. I've always hesitated even coming on my own because I was just afraid to relieve all those things. And the thing that makes it more difficult for me is the fact that I cannot remember a single name to honor them. There was never any time to get to know them because they spent so little time with me before they were either killed or wounded and went back home, one way or the other. So it has been very difficult for me, but I hope that this will help me heal through this situation. Thank you.
It's more than a flag, stars and stripes. It waves for the ones who died and gave their lives so you and I can live our own. It stands for truth, it stands for grace. These colors don't run empty this day. It carries sacrifice and scars, every stripe and star it has. You might know the definition, but the truth is, it's more than a flag. You might know the definition, but the truth is, it's more than a flag.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
When I was told that I was going to lay the wreath at the end, at the tomb, I was absolutely humbled that I would get that honor. That's probably one of the biggest and most precious memories I'll ever have. Jeez. And having the honor of laying that wreath, I don't know how you could get a better honor. And being there with the Sergeant Major.
My dearest son, it's almost June. I hope this letter catches up with you and finds you well.
We would like you to join us in a very special tradition that meant so much for our veterans that were deployed. It is called mail call.
In a letter from home, I hold it up and show my buddies like we ain't scared and our boots ain't muddy and they all laugh like they're
I could not fathom what it'd be like going through that. My grandfather has told me many stories about World War II. He has told me about the gunpowder lingering in the air like a memory, the screaming ringing eardrum to eardrum, the friends he saw fall. I am amazed at how brave you are.
You are a true hero, not because you wear a cape or a shield or even have superpowers. You are a hero because you put your life at risk for others. Thank you to all veterans.
So you all did the mail call. I didn't expect it. Beautiful, that was beautiful. That just transported me to my time in Vietnam. I had a friend who was a school teacher, and he had his entire class write letters. I went ahead and distributed it to my team, and we were happy. We were just having a good time reading. You know, it hits right here in the heart. You know, when you start reading all these letters. You know, it's awesome.
X's and O's in a letter from home.
I wanted to thank you for what you have done for the country and offer my condolences for those you lost and the things you saw. I understand many veterans like you were drafted into the war when you're only a few months older than I am now. When I think of that, I'm terrified, and I cannot imagine how you felt. I'm very sorry for all you endured, and I'm very grateful for your sacrifice. Thank you, and may the saints bless you.
I'm talking about all types of veterans, from soldiers who are in charge of communicating vital information to the soldiers who are down in the trenches. Thank you to the medic helping the injured in the middle of the war, and thank you to those who risked their lives in the front lines of war. Thank you for putting your body and mind through hell to protect our country.
I hold it up and show my buddies like we ain't scared and our boots ain't muddy, but no one laughs, 'cause there ain't nothing funny when a soldier cries. And I just wipe my eyes. I fold it up and put it in my shirt, pick up my gun and get back to work. And it keeps me driving on.
The impact you have left on the world and on the great country, the USA, is profound, and you will be remembered long after your time.
Letters from home.
Stop right there when you see those boots and a uniform coming your way. Get off your cell phone and look 'em in the eye and drop that old briefcase. If you want to see what a hero looks like, this might be your chance. Before you go back home to your safe little world, y'all, don't you understand? These are the men and women that keep us living safe inside our homes. And if you took 1 minute, your head would be spinning to see the things that they know. So stop what you're doing, walk up to him, and tell him how much it means.
I get up in the morning, 4:03 in the morning. I get up, I just take off running, just to clear my head. I would never explain to nobody what happened.
We hadn't been married a year, and he had an outburst. Anger. And at that time, I didn't know anything about PTSD, and I thought it was me. I said, it's me, I did something. It has to be my fault. Because it was just me and him in the apartment.
And I became a workaholic. Every time they had overtime, I take the overtime just to stay busy. After I retired, everything just fell down. It came down on me. I was at this restaurant. He said, where do you work? I said, I just retired. He says, do you have PTSD? He said, no. I'm pissed off. I'm going to kick the guy. I says, no. He said, I'm from Beaumont. I'm in charge of psychiatric. You have PTSD? And I want to get you fixed up.
I don't know if I can do this or not, but this is my first time I've ever gotten out to say something about everything that's happened. My son don't know what's been going on in my life all those years. Sometimes I catch myself going into it. I go into a corner and It's just, well, I said, what's up? It's okay, just leave me alone, I'll get over it. And I'm trying to open up now, because I've never told anybody this. Nobody knows anything about me because everything I consumed, I kept it to myself.
While I was in Vietnam, I was young. There was good and bad moments, mostly bad. The experience I got when I came back, it was hard burning, and I still have, but we got to learn to live. Every one of you today, you got the power to change. Tomorrow is a hope and a dream, and God bless you veterans, you're alive. Today we came to do something. We honor those that were not as lucky as we are, and happy future. Thank you.
I found a rubbing on the wall, and I'm the reason he was up there. I've lived with it for about 60 years. We were on a four aircraft mission going on CC and Command Control North, and we were in a holding pattern, and I was playing around with a knife and cut my fingers, and my pilot told me to go to the dispensary and get it fixed. We were the lead ship. So when I got back, the other 3 birds had taken off, and we became the last ship. The second bird became the ship I was supposed to be in. As we went into the LZ, he got shot down. Norman Paley was alive and well until they tried to drag him out, and they broke his neck on a sling in a Huey. And I've carried that mission with me all my life now. It is my life. It's been haunting me, and because of today, I may get over it. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Last night I made up my mind that I was going to find 17 people. But I don't know if it happened to you, but once I got to the wall and I touched it, I couldn't do anything else. So I'm going to keep this in me for another day. And hopefully I can bear it.
Don't you know who you just walked past with your headphones in today? You're all concerned with your own little world just outside the terminal gate. But they're coming home from a whole nother world that we know nothing about. So the least we can give them's a standing ovation. It's time they hear us shout.
Thank you for serving our country. Thank you for giving us the freedom that we have the opportunity to see today.
We also want everybody to know that every day is Veterans Day.
We left Cameron Bay, went to Washington, McCord. The pilot said, if you're in uniform, change, because you don't know what's waiting outside for you. All the spit in the world, all the throwing stuff at us, yelling at us, throwing shit, that was how it was. And I hope as hell that we don't ever repeat that again.
All right, so I've retired, Jerry's retired. We learned from your lessons. Everything that you did before us, we had to learn from and take from. Your sacrifice is commendable.
Coming home from Vietnam was pretty emotional, because none of us knew what to expect. Because most of us that were over there because we thought we were fighting communism. We thought we were doing a good thing. And then you get these little punks. I had one in particular that asked me how it felt to be a baby killer. I grabbed him by his ponytail, spun him around the circle about 3 times, and I got arrested. But the judge fined me $25 and told me to go home.
I was helping the first T there in El Paso, and they had to change. He was going to be our national spokesman. President Bush Jr. was taking it over, and I got to meet him, and I told him that I was a Vietnam veteran. He stood at attention, saluted me, thanked me, and welcomed me home and hugged me. And that was a great feeling for me in my life, but nothing compared to the welcome that we got today. And I shared that today. You know, I mean, I finally felt like I was a part of this, you know.
I got off the bus, and as I got off the bus, a car happened to backfire. And what do you think I did? I hit the pavement, and I hit it hard. And everybody standing around was laughing at me and calling me a baby killer and everything. I got up and brushed my clothes off and said, "You just don't know. You just don't know." Because we served in a location to where nobody respected us, but we did what our government told us to do.
I got spit on in San Francisco. The higher Krishnas were talking to us in a derogatory manner. I went downtown with my mom. One of the cars that was there backfired, and I just shoved my mom down on the sidewalk and I hit the deck, and people were looking at me like, what is this guy, crazy or something?
I had my dress blues and my white cap. You know, they threw stuff at you and everything, and what I had to do is go to the bathroom, and I took all my clothes, threw them on the floor, and got some civilian clothes. And that's the way I came home, with civils. Really upsetting and sad. You know, I was proud of my uniform, and I had to throw it away.
And when we say it's better at Bliss, it can only be better because of the freedoms we enjoy because of your sacrifices. I know that for many of you today, this is an emotional event because decades ago, in all too many cases, you didn't receive the warm welcome that you deserved then. But today, here and now, we wholeheartedly and enthusiastically thank you for a job well done, and we welcome you home. Thank you.
Well, when we were flying back, I said, well, you know, I'm going to get a good welcoming like they did here to us in D.C. When I got off the plane, I didn't see anybody for me. I didn't have nobody to hug. You know how you guys do it? You get people from everywhere, and you know, you tell them, hey, you know, these people, these soldiers are coming home. No matter who it is, just, you know, hug them and you know, give them a good welcome.
At Chapin, like, we just want to thank y'all for all y'all services, all the sacrifice y'all did for us and fighting for our country, and we just want to say thank you very much.
I was totally surprised of what Honor Flight, how it was able to affect me. Years of individual and group therapy didn't do what Honor Flight did in one flight at all. In one flight, it took care of so many feelings that I had, uncertainties that I had in my life about my service in Vietnam.
Today was a very emotional day for me. It was a roller coaster ride, up and down. Every time I went to a memorial, I broke down. When y'all gave us thanks for coming home, I broke down. And I thought about when I did come home, how I was treated, and it hurted. And I call myself a hard person, but really I guess I'm a baby, like everybody else in this room. I was crying, and I think everybody saw me crying, and it really hurt me to know that we didn't get no respect. That we were thought of as baby killers. And anything that they could think of, they thought of us as low lives. But in reality, we were doing a job, and everybody in here was doing a job that they were told to do. I just appreciate y'all giving us this opportunity. Like somebody told me, to heal, to get it out of my system, to let it go. And that's what I'm trying to do tonight. I was just doing what my country asked me to do. And that was all. Thank you.
And if you took 1 minute, your head would be spinning to see the things that they know. So stop what you're doing and walk up to him and tell him how much it means that every night you drift off to sleep, they've got it covered, protecting you and me. Stop when you see a uniform. God bless the USA.
It's more than a flag, stars and stripes. Your head waves for the one.
And I just want to thank you all for what you all are doing You know, and it's just blessed my heart to know that the honor flight team do what they do because the love they have for the veteran, Vietnam veteran, Korean veteran.
But the truth is, it's more than a flag. It's there when we fight, it's there when we fall.
The only thing I kept thinking, they said they were gonna feed us. They were gonna feed us, that we were never gonna be hungry. So I said, and that is true. That was one of the things. Beth Ann, my guardian, she had that backpack. She pulled everything. You want some water? You want some granola, mint? She had all kinds of goodies. And I keep thinking, yeah, we're not gonna starve.
Foreign shores. That's why we bleed red, white, and blue.
The staff is very veteran friendly. They are well aware of the situations that especially the Vietnam veterans went through when they returned from Vietnam. So they take all those things into account and they focus on some of those issues.
Jerry's sacrifice and scars, every stripe and star it has. You might know the definition, but the truth is, it's more than a flag. You might know the definition, but the truth is, it's more than a flag.
I hope everyone can come and share this so they can share their stories.
For you and what you can do for your country.
It's quite an honor. And I thank you all.